This episode is brought to you by FX's feud, Capote versus the Swans. Inspired by actual events, the series tells the story of Truman Capote and the women he betrayed. The original housewives. They were society's most elite women. Rich, glamorous socialites who defined a bygone era of high society New York. From creator Ryan Murphy, this drama series features an all-star cast, including Naomi Watts, Demi Moore, and Diane Lane. FX's feud premieres January 31st on FX Stream on Hulu.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, now streaming only on Netflix.
Bare naked, bare naked, bare naked, ABCs. Welcome to the Bare Naked ABCs, where we discuss every Bare Naked Ladies song from 7 to Y. It saddens me, honestly, to say this, but Michelle was searching for Aaron. She had heard that he was in a lost temple in South America. I received news that she found a golden idol, shaped like Stephen Page, I guess, but someone placed a booby trap on it. I won't mention names, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was the evil Dr. Saker. It was reported that she outran the boulder, but was taken hostage by someone. We're doing all that we can to find her, but it might take us some time. In the meantime, we are without Erin also this week. But before her fall, Michelle sent me a picture of the message that Aaron had left on the bottom of the South American Idol. So I'll be reading that later. But joining me this week is Katherine Cornetta. She is a full-time college administrator, a part-time sports writer, a native West New Yorker, and a longtime Bare Naked Ladies fan. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm also a longtime listener of your podcast. I listen to it on the train every week going to and from work.
Well, it is wonderful that we have a fan on the show. I love having fans on. So
excellent.
Now, how did you come to Bare Naked Ladies?
So I grew up in Rochester, New York. And in the 90s, and somehow in the 90s, you either liked Dave Matthews Band or Bare Naked Ladies when you were growing up in the 90s. And so I chose Bare Naked Ladies. So I got my first CD when I was in 7th grade. And I got Gordon in 7th grade, and then just continued from there. My biggest regret as a teenager was that my parents did not let me go see their famous Lilac Festival concert in 1996.
Oh.
Yes, I wasn't allowed to go, but I was able to go to their record-setting concert in 1998 at the Blue Cross Arena, which is the war memorial in Rochester, New York. So, and since then, I've been to over 20 shows, which is kind of crazy to think. That one, I'm that old, and two, that I've done that. I've gone to see the same band over 20 times, but here we are.
Now, were you able to see them when they did that small, intimate show in the Round? They did a series a tour at one point where everything was done in the Round on a very small stage.
I did not get to see that. No, oh. There was a period of time, a couple of years, where grad school kind of got in the way, and I didn't get to see them as much. So, but I would take the summers when I was in college, and I'd go see 3 or 4 shows on their summer tours, and that was around Maroon. So, and then my senior year of college, my friend Rachel and I decided to go on our spring break and hit up 3 concerts of their tour for Everything for Everyone. So that was my wild and crazy senior year right there.
Now, given all of that, given your long history with the band, what's your favorite album by them?
That's a good question because I have there's there's the 5-piece favorite album, and then there's the 4-piece favorite album, and
all right,
I would have to say that's the way I kind of look at it, and I would have to say for the whole band favorite album, I would have to say Stunt, just because that was the album that I could bring to my friends who did not like them. The half of my high school class that liked Dave Matthews Band, and I could say, look, this is the band I love, and you can love them too. And this will, it was such a good introduction to the band for everybody else to bring them into the fandom and to really understand what the band was all about. And then post Steve, I like Grinning Street, which I know is kind of controversial because it's not, I've listened to other people at other podcasts, other episodes of this podcast, and so, but Grinning Street came out at a time in my life where it was just, I was in my car a lot, driving to a lot of part-time sports writing gigs, and it became my soundtrack of driving out to the middle of Massachusetts to cover track on a Saturday. So it kind of that's my post-Steve favorite.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Most exposure to it, listened to it over and over again, really got to delve in deep with it.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty fun album also. So.
Yeah. And the thing about that album that kind of throws me is your 3 bonus cuts, bonus tracks, I think are better than some of the regular tracks. Fog of Writing, hello, I don't understand why that wasn't originally included, but I'm not in the record industry. What do I know? I don't know.
So we're not covering one off Grinning Streak tonight.
Yes.
We're actually going to cover one. Actually, that's next week.
Something to listen to on the train.
This week we're covering a song off from All in Good Time from 2002. 2010. Boy, oh boy, I'm way off. We're covering Golden Boy.
Hey, golden boy, don't let the darkness in to take you away from yourself.
Which is completely an Ed song. I wish that I had a ton of information about this song. In terms of trying to dig deep and gather information on this song, it's hard to do because the only way to get really good information on this song is to delve back into Twitter back in 2010, which that's a long dive to try to make on Twitter. And I sat there for a half an hour on Bare Naked Ladies' Twitter site and only got 3 years back. And I'm like, all right, I can't possibly sit here unless someone can teach me how to sift backwards through time on Twitter. I'm never going to be able to go back that far because they did actually do a lot of tweets as they were making this album back then.
Yes. I remember that, but it is impossible to go back 10 years on Twitter. I try because in my sports writing work, it's actually great to find play-by-play of games I've covered or events I've covered, and I can't even find my own account from 10 years ago. So let alone somebody else's.
So as you know, we don't have Aaron tonight. Looking online, the only thing I was able to find, and this could be incorrect, tunebat.com has been known to be incorrect. At least I believe Aaron over TuneBat. But TuneBat says that it's B-flat major at 134 beats per minute, which makes sense. It's a pretty fast tune. Mm-hmm. Now, here's one of the interesting things I did pick up looking through all this. This song has only ever been played in concert twice, according to setlist.fm. And this was during the opening tour of this album for All in Good Time. They played it twice, and that was it. And it was months apart.
Well, I could see that because I've been to, 8 shows since this came out, and I've rarely heard an All in Good Time song. And recently, they haven't played anything off that album at all. So,
No.
like, in the shows I've seen recently. And I've never heard this one live. So, that's, I don't know.
And we won't get to it for another year, but Let It Be Light, which was their one-off extra that they added onto this album, even that got played 7 times during this tour. This got 2 plays.
Wow.
And it's weird because this isn't like one of those soft ballads that they're like, okay, yeah, we're not going to deep cut into this. This is a rocker. Like, this has some real speed and power to it.
Well, I've kind of come up with a theory. Like, I have a theory about this song, and I also have a theory about why they don't play songs from this album often. And I think it's because this album came, it's the first without Steve, and it's the first where Ed has to really carry the vocals, except for, the few songs they have of Jen and Kevin. And I think they really worried about tiring his voice out. And you can see that in just, through social media posts, through their more recent tours on Instagram and everything. There are points in tours where his voice is like, you can tell it's not where it was at the beginning of that tour.
Yeah.
And I really think these songs are so, like, Ed was trying so hard vocally on all the songs on this album. They're maybe afraid to insert them nowadays, especially in long tours like the one they just did this summer with, why did I forget his name? Hootie and Blowfish. Yes. I was like, I wanted to call him Dan Patrick for a minute because he always appears on the Dan Patrick show. They went on tour with Dan Patrick. No, they didn't. It's Darius Rucker.
No, that would be interesting. But
I would go to, I would quit my job because I'm addicted to Dan Patrick. I would quit my job, and I love my job, but I would quit it, and I would go to every single stop on that tour. Bare Naked Ladies opening for Dan Patrick and the Danettes. Yes, totally. But yeah, that's my theory about why they don't play All in Good Time songs.
I like that theory, and I also one of the things that backs that up is the one video that they have of them playing this live, which was, there's only 2, as I mentioned, that is listed on Set FM. There was one concert that did get filmed off that tour at the beginning of the tour, and his voice was not there for this song. If it's right that it's in B flat major, that is not a typical key for Ed to sing in. Mm-hmm. So it's actually pretty high for him. And I mean, he can hit higher notes, but for him to stay on that key throughout a whole song, I think is not a normal key pattern for him to be doing. And it didn't sound right. It didn't sound good throughout that whole song. So that they might have been like, you know what? This is hard to do in concert back to back with all these other songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you, I really think the only All in Good Time song I think I've heard live multiple times, it might be You Run Away. Would it even be You Run Away? I don't know. They don't
play that tour. I think they really hit that one.
Yeah.
They were kind of trying to define who they were going to be, and that was their single off the album. So I think they hit that a lot on that tour, but not much after. I'm actually looking it up on setlist.fm right now. It's going to take me a minute, though, because it's at the very bottom of the list, alphabetically. We'll hit that never.
In 5 years.
That's what it feels
like. Invite me back in 5 years. I'll be in my 40s. Totally. It'll be great. My kids will be older. It'll be fantastic.
So I think you're right. They hit You Run Away 109 times, and almost every single one of those was in the year to year and a half following that album, and then they haven't played it again since 2015.
Yeah, and it's You Run Away, I feel like is the very rare Bare Naked Ladies song that sounds better on the album than live. And I would say probably a lot of the All in Good Time songs probably fall into that category as well.
I'm looking it up because I want to see. I like your theory, and I'm trying to see, are there any other songs that I like off the album that would be good in concert?
I mean,
and looking at it in concert, I can't. I love a lot of these songs, like 4 Seconds, which we already covered. I love 4 Seconds, but it's not a concert song. And I love Summertime, which we'll get to in 4 years. But once again, it's not a concert song. None of these songs are really concert songs, really.
Yeah. Like, The Love We're In would be, they could only play that at like a small show. And I feel like they only have.
Yeah. So this isn't their rocking album where they can really do that. Yeah. But that brings me back again to, like, this is a rocker. Like, why have they not come back to this as like part of their deep well? And I think the other part of the reason they haven't done that is what the song is about, which we haven't even started to delve into. But I think it's about time to delve into what this song's about and why they don't come back to it.
Yes.
What is your thoughts? I'll get to what I think it's about in a minute, but what are your thoughts on what this song is really about?
Okay, so maybe this will disqualify me from being in any future episodes, but we shall see. So
I don't know. We've all been pretty acerbic on this show so far.
So I have a theory. Of course, I have a theory. That's my life. I have theories about everything. That there are, in the post-Steve world, there are songs that fall into the genre of Ed Steve breakup songs. And I even have a Spotify playlist called Ed Steve breakup songs. And they are You Run Away, Ordinary, I Have Learned, Golden Boy, Best Damn Friend, Say What You Want, and Looking Up. And so they might be, I feel like if you ask them, they're going to say about, they're about something else. But there's a string in these when, in a lot of them, that you look and they make reference, you could think they're making reference to either the interviews that Steve Page did with Canadian media around the time of the breakup. You could look at them and say they're about Kevin trying to keep his relationship with Steve while the rest of the band's on the outs. There's that, to me, that kind of, that an interview with Jim that stuck with me, that said, when he said, I sent Steve emails about environmental things and he doesn't even respond to those, and I thought we were good. So I feel like Ed seems to, in his songwriting, has written about dark times in his life. Leave is like one that sticks out to me about his brother. Right. So this is a dark time in Ed's life. He lost his best friend since when he was a teenager. He was in a plane crash. His mom died. And so,
all within like 4 months of each other. Like,
so you're going to see Ed process through songs. And I think Golden Boy is him processing through something. And you see, like, to me, in the lyrics, I'm just pulling them back up. Like, when he's saying, hey, Golden Boy, don't let the darkness in to take you away from yourself. I feel like that's him saying to Steve, like, you got to get out of this funk that has you driving to Syracuse and being with another woman and leaving your wife. And one of these days, you're going to wake up wondering how it went down. Then in a day, you're going to wake up. You're going to make up something and wallow around in your room. And I feel like that might be referencing some of the things Steve said to the CBC and some other Canadian broadcasters about the breakup that might not have been true. So that is my theory.
There's a lot of differences between the two groups about what was the actual breakup and what was the actual reasons at that time.
Yeah.
And Steven's songs, especially on his newest album, really kind of reference, I think, a lot of that as well, and him kind of coming to his own terms recently with all of that.
Yeah.
But I think this is Ed's album of doing that.
Yeah. He did it right off the bat. Well, it took Steve a couple of solo albums to do that.
Yeah, Steve was still kind of in denial at the moment, I think, and Ed was past denial, as happens in a lot of relationships. Like, one of them is much further down the path of recovery and grief than the other one is, because they've been kind of going through the wanting of breaking up long before then. And I think Ed was much further down the path of wanting this breakup than Steve was at the time. And Steve is kind of coming around to it now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, your list that you came up with, I could see that for every single song that you were listening. I'm like, yes, definitely. And some of them are more shaded and more hidden in there, and hidden, and could be meaning other things. Although when you take it in reference to this album, I don't think it is. Mm-hmm. This one, there's no real hiding it. There wasn't anyone arguing online like, no, that's not what this is about. Everyone was very definitive, like, no, this is definitely a Steve Ed breakup song. This is, and my note that I had written down was like, and I've said it a couple of times, but this is more definitive than any of the other songs. This is the "How Do You Sleep" of Ed songs, like. But it's the Canadian version. It's so positive and so caring about the other person. Almost like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to accept you back into my life, but I'm sorry, and I hope you're okay.
Yeah. It's. I never thought about it this way, but it is rather apologetic.
It's so funny because you can hear the anger in the song in the way it's written with both the music and the lyrics. And you can hear that he's done with it. Like, just hang your hat at somebody else's house. Like, there's no doubt. Like, we're not letting you back. This is over. But I hope you're okay. Like, don't let your hair fall out.
Well, and just hang your hat at somebody else's house. I really think the whole idea that when you think about how tight-knit that group was for so long, and I'm sure the wives knew each other, especially Steve and Ed's. And when you have Steve's divorce as a precursor to this whole breakup thing, and I'm sure there was a lot of animosity that goes with, you just left your wife that we all know for so many years for somebody else in another country, even though, Syracuse and Toronto are very, very close in terms of how they are with snow, and
we're not talking like thousands of miles apart either.
No, and so I think that line may have sprung from that whole idea that, oh, okay, you're going to somebody else's house now, and I think that to me is one of the most biting things Ed has ever written. Because it could be read many ways.
Yeah, well, and earlier in the first verse, you have, let me find the line here, but there's nobody left to make you run. Somebody new, boom, right?
Yeah.
You're running to this new person instead of trying to take care of you. Here you are, trying to run away from this situation.
Yeah, and the other one that's very biting to me is near to the end where he says, no, you're not a quitter, so don't you be bitter. Go, where you'll glitter away. And I think the last time I saw them as a 5-piece was at a Guinness Arena in Boston around, I think it was Bare Naked Ladies Are Men. And having seen them so many times at that point, you really felt a tension on stage that Steve wanted to be out front and he carried most of the songs in that concert that I remember. And I feel like that line could be a reference to, Steve being the vocal powerhouse that he is, and wanting to, and maybe making Ed feel a little left out.
Yeah, no, and if you like, we've referenced it before, but on the Ships and Dips tour from that year, like you could be reading into it, and of course, hindsight's 2020, but if you read into it and you look back at the songs and the videos off from that tour, off that cruise, Steve very much is grabbing the limelight on stage, and several times, like, Ed will be singing and Steve's not even looking at him, he's looking off away from Ed. He will move to the front of the stage away from Ed, which is not something he ever did before. Like, they were always, this is one of those things about them live that was amazing. They were always even on stage with each other. Neither one would ever upstage the other one. They would always be right there and pairing off each other, looking at each other throughout the concert. They were, in many ways, a couple on stage. And playing so well off each other. And then they include the other bandmates as well, but it was definitely the pairing of them that made them special on stage. And when you watch them on the Ships and Dips tour, that is gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's very sad to watch them.
Yeah. And as it was on that last time I saw them, I remember I got out of the concert. I got back to my apartment because at the time I lived right by the arena. And I called my mom and I said, I bet you that's the last time I'll ever see them together. And my mom, who was like, the chef, or, I can never say it, my ride to most Bare Naked Ladies concerts until I moved to college, she was like shocked. She's like, what are you talking about? Have you been drinking? No, that's not possible. And then I was like, oh, look at that, Mom. I was right. Should play the lotto.
Listen to me more often.
Yeah, here I was. Got the sense. There was some tension.
There's another line in here, like that whole second verse is very, there are parts that aren't biting, but it's a very biting verse. Game, set, and match, I have to give you, you're the man. Like, you win.
Yeah.
And it's very much like he's fighting with someone without the other person even being in the room.
Yeah.
It's hard to listen to this song because it is so angry. I mean, he's still being polite, but he is just so mad in this song.
Yeah. And
then he follows it up with that next line, like, oh, there's a catch. Everyone sees right through you.
Yeah. Because I think that Ed, he thought people did. I don't think Ed thought, I mean, I am not in Canada. I'm not a Canadian resident, but from my reading, it sounded like people were siding with Steve. And I think Ed thought that this breakup would happen and Ed would be like, oh, Ed, I totally understand why this happened. And Canadian sentiment, I had written a blog post about it at the time on my blog, which is currently down because my hosting company stinks. But I had written a blog post about the breakup, and the comments of people I didn't know were all very like, no, Ed's in the wrong. This is Ed's fault. Steve is great. This shouldn't have happened. And so I feel like that line is interesting because I think Ed thought everyone saw right through Steve, but I don't think that was the case.
No, and which is confusing because I will admit that I was angry that it felt like I knew that Steve was definitely in the wrong, especially considering all the things that he had done. But I was angry with Ed that they kicked him out. Like, I was like, hey, here's a man that really needs you. Take a break, force him to take a break, send him to rehab, get him the help he needs, because this is a man that is suffering, and you're just shoving him out on the street. And of course, I didn't have like, they'd been fighting for years at that point. They had been problems for years. It wasn't like some quick, sudden thing that they were like, hey, you ruined our chance with Disney here, like, because of your actions. It was a lot deeper. And Steven's come to accept, like, no, I had some mistakes that I made in this whole thing. But I know it took me a while to let go of my anger toward the band.
Oh, yeah. And one of my former co-workers at the newspaper I used to write for, he was a big Bare Naked Ladies fan. He's about 2 years older than me. And he won't go see them in concert anymore because if I, post on Facebook, hey, I'm going to see Bare Naked Ladies in concert, very excited, he'll say, oh, no, it's not that bad. It's not Bare Naked Ladies if Steve's not in it. And I'm like, but it is, like, you could argue it both sides, but it's what's on the ticket, so I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, well, and it is Bare Naked Ladies. It's without Steven. And the band has moved on, but it would be the same as saying it's not Bare Naked Ladies because it doesn't have Andy Cregan in it anymore.
I know.
You still have the base group of them that are still there, and their music has changed. They sound different now, but they're still Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah.
There is a couple lyrics that are online. I want to correct them. Once again, I am not sure how people are posting incorrect lyrics online, especially ones that are so way off and don't make any sense. Especially considering they're in the liner notes. Like, yes. How do you not just, like, take them and type them in? So in the first verse, it says, maybe it's you only bereft of, and they have it bereft of meeting. I'm like, no, it's bereft of meaning. Like, it doesn't even make any sense the way they've written it. And then at the end of the second verse, it says, tell me you wanted something. And it types in, went to the cone made you explode. I'm like, what? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, wait, no, you entered the code that made you explode. Okay, in other words, it's all your fault. You did this to yourself. Totally makes sense there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I saw those lyrics online. I'm like, went to the cone. I mean, yeah, lots of ice cream shops between Toronto and Clifton Springs. But, there's not, I don't think that's what Ed's talking about.
No, I don't think so. But it's amazing how apologetic he is throughout this thing. Even though he's angry.
Yeah.
Now I hope he won't be lonely anymore.
Exactly. Jenks.
He can't be. He is so Canadian. He's like, he can't be angry without saying, I'm hoping you're okay, though.
Yeah.
So, and I love that about Ed. I think it's great. It's not a bad quality. It's what I love about it, and I especially love about Kevin. Like, he is just so, like, caring about other people. Yeah. It just doesn't match the tone of the song.
No.
I love the synth that's in this song.
Yes.
I wasn't able to hear the synth until I watched the live video, at which point, like, Kevin puts the guitar to the side. He's playing both the synth and then has the guitar, and they swaps it out halfway through the song. I couldn't hear the synth until I watched the live version of it then, and then all of a sudden, like, I could hear the synth throughout the song for the rest of the time.
Yeah. And it's a rocker, it's a layered song. The instrumentals are great, in my opinion. And it really, I don't know in 2010 if it would have charted or anything, but I think you had a chance to send it to alt radio or something, because I think you listen to that and then you have to be told it's Bare Naked Ladies. You don't necessarily know right off the bat. And I think there is an audience that song could have grabbed that they don't usually get. Like when they sent Leave the Country Radio. Did they send? I could have sworn they sent something else recently, the country, to see if it would chart. And I think, it would have been worth a chance to see if Golden Boy would have made a dent somewhere.
And it's like they went with You Run Away, which is an odd choice to kind of go with to represent themselves, because it's not representative of what the rest of their album sounds like, nor what their new sound is really like most of the time.
Yeah.
I think this song is much more definitive of what their new sound is.
Yeah, but I think, did they know that at that point? Like, did they know that it was going to be faster or more rocking and everything? Or was this You Run Away feeds into what the media talk had been around the breakup in a way that, yes, Golden Boy is about the breakup, but You Run Away is much more like, I miss you. I hope you're, like, it's like when you think about the way they wanted to paint the breakup, this You Run Away makes them look a lot better than Golden Boy does.
Yes, it actually does. It does. Maybe this would have been a good secondary kind of song to kind of break, to patch that up, or to follow it up with, rather than Every Subway Car.
Yeah. Which,
I like Every Subway Car, but I think this would have been the better song to kind of go with for what they were going with.
Yeah. Every Subway Car is a skip for me. It's a nice song, but it's just like, oh, yeah. Maybe I spend too much time on subways. I don't know.
Well, we discussed before. There are some problems with that song anyways.
We at A-Log on the Airways would like to remind you a little bit about our competition. Have you heard these other guys?
Hey, how's it going today? Thanks for listening to our radio station. Hey!
What the hell is that? You need a show that has a lot more humor. But this?
Right, here's another hit for you. Turn it up as loud as you can and party!
As if. If you want to hear something that is not from some lily-livered, no-humor pansy, then take a listen to A-Log on the Airways every Saturday night from 7 to 10 Eastern Standard Time, only on madmusic.com and archive.org. Not a bad idea now, is it?
Now, what I don't have, and I looked it up and I tried to find it, and without actually, because I don't actually go out and buy singles most of the time, unless I'm trying to find the B-side because it's not available to anywhere else. I could not find what the B-side was off You Run Away. I think this would have been a good B-side for You Run Away.
Yeah.
I think it paints that other side of the picture.
Have you, kind of on this theme, on that point, there was an article, and I want to say it was Dave Holmes, in Esquire, who wrote about how this time period is kind of lost to us in terms of singles because of the rise of digital music. And so it's going to be harder to find what the B-sides were on singles because we bought them all online, on iTunes, when Napster had that paid option, on whatever we were using at the time. And now, that's like 6 computers ago now. And now we have Spotify, so we don't need to worry about transferring digital files. But then it's going to get to this point where we don't have a record of what the B-side was on the things that we bought at the time.
And it's hard to find any of the hard copies. I don't know if there were any hard copies made of that single.
Yeah. I don't... That might have been the first album that there wasn't like a hard copy single. Because it's 2010.
Yeah. Luckily, I have like 4 years to figure that out, so... I guess my point is, like, this would have been the good... If they did have it and it wasn't this, I don't know why they didn't choose this for the other side. Like, this would have been a good, like, other way of looking at that breakup and what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have any more, like, I don't have a lot about the music. It's very quintessential kind of rocking BNL. It's kind of what BNL kind of does when they do rocking songs. And it's definitely sounds a lot, at least on the better end of all of their newer stuff. But it sounds a lot like their newer stuff.
Yeah. The vocals are strong, but they're also studio produced. You can tell there was a lot of production done to them. But the instrumentals are really, really good. And you could tell, I mean, Kevin did a great job on his contributions, as he always does in that song in particular.
Yeah. Do you have any other notes for this song?
No, you didn't laugh me off when I said I have an Ed Steve breakup song playlist. So I was like, let's get that out early. And I make sure that people don't laugh me off the show. So
no.
that's everything I had.
All right. So we're gonna go with the 5-point scale tonight. And this week, since it's Golden Boys, I think that there's one of two ways to go with this, but we're in America. I don't know the trophies well enough in Canada, and I apologize, Canada. So we're going to have to go with Oscars. How many Oscars do we give this song? So I'll start off, just because I want to give you some time to kind of think about this. I like this song. It's not like in the pantheon of the upper quadrant of songs here. But I definitely enjoy the song. I wouldn't turn it off. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to listen to this song because of the passive-aggressive anger that's in this song. And there's no hiding it. It's the same reason I can't listen to, How Do You Sleep? Even though it's a beautiful John Lennon song, I can't listen to it because I love Paul McCartney. Yeah. And I can't listen to him put Paul McCartney down. Yeah. But when I say, like, hey, you want to hear really good songwriting? Go listen to How Do You Sleep? Like, that is, like, quintessential, like, bare sarcasm written into poem. I think this is really well written. He's not hiding it, but at the same time, I love the edisms of apologizing for stuff and feeling like he's still standing his ground. I struggle. I like this a lot more than I do Every Subway Car. I like it better than Best Damn Friends. I'm probably probably me just cringe.
No, I'm not saying Best Damn Friend is one of my favorite songs. It's just fits on the playlist.
Do I like it better than 4 Seconds? I don't think I do, and I'm actually trying to find it. I can't even find my score I gave 4 Seconds. No, I don't like it better than 4 Seconds. I'm going to give this a solid 3.5.
Okay. I will do a 3.75 because this is the one song on All in Good Time that I will always go back to. If I've had a bad day and I don't have my kids in the car, this is the song that I blast while driving down 95 here in Boston. This is my one of my go-tos, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it because I think it's it's just, I don't know, it's a fun song to me because of the different layers and you can, every time I listen to it, I think of something else. Like, oh, that line might be referring to this. This line could be referring to that. And look at Ed, get out that aggression. And, the first time I listened to it, I was like, you go, girl. Like, tell us what's going on. Like, tell us your thoughts. Get it all out, Ed. You're all good. We're good. We're going to move on from this. We're going to be, yeah. And so, I don't know. It's like Ed empowerment in a song. So 3.75. Not the best.
I like it.
Not the best Bare Naked Ladies song in the world. I'm going to give you that. But
it is still high up on this album, though.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
So my appearance this week it's not an actual appearance. It's an interview that they did around the All in Good Time album. It's a really interesting interview that they have. And I think one of the most definitive statements, and I think it ties really well to this song, which is why I wanted to include it this week, is they asked Ed, like, they were asking him about the music on this album. And he said, and about the breakup, and his response was, "I still feel tied to him and responsible for him." And it makes me, your face, it makes me so sad that that's how he feels about Steven at this point in his life. Of course he feels tied to him, but the fact that all this time and still at that moment he felt responsible for Steven is so sweet. But it's just so sad too that he's fighting with himself over that situation. And talking about the album, he says it sounds like us, but more raw, which once again I think sounds a lot like this song. Yes. And then they said, "Do you need to know the traumatic history to understand to get this album?" And he said, "I don't think so. We're trying to convey emotionality, but the backstory sometimes illuminates where that's coming from." And I think that speaks again really wonderfully to this song and what's happening in this song. So I recommend, it's a really good article. There's some really funny parts in it as well. So I'm going to put it up there. I recommend people go out and read it. It's actually really cool.
Excellent. I will definitely. I'm sure I read it at the time, but I want to read it again.
I like going back and rereading some of this stuff now and seeing it with different eyes.
Yeah.
So, Katherine, do you have any plugs that you would like to put out there? Any places that people can go out and see stuff that you've done or listen to stuff that you've done?
You can always find me on Twitter. I'm at Kat Cornetta, Kat with a K, and I try to link to all my stuff there. My website is sportsgirlcat.com, though it is currently down because my website host is being, but hopefully by the time this uploads, it will not be down anymore. So sportsgirlcat.com. I freelance write about sports, and if there's any Canadians listening, I do freelance write about figure skating and women's hockey, which are two of your favorite things. So up there in Canada. So please feel free to read any of the stuff that I link to on Twitter, because you might enjoy it. I mean, it's ice sports. Ice sports are wonderful. So
that's right. I love ice sports, but there's one problem with them. I cannot skate. I am totally a person that I'm a walker. I cannot skate in the least. You put me on skates, and my natural thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk. And just over and over again, like, it doesn't look right because the whole time I'm trying to walk, and I'm just gonna walk on the skates. Speaking of which, that's our song for next week, is "Gonna Walk." That was me really reaching for the cover on that one.
Now, how many times has that been played? Because I'm pretty sure it's probably in the thousands. Because even my husband, who had not seen Bare Naked Ladies until he married me, can sing that song, every single line, because he's seen it in concert so many times.
I was just going to say, we're going to talk next week more about it, but we went from a song that's been played twice in concert, and next week we're going to be discussing their quintessential hit that they play in every concert since they're a foursome. Yes.
the deep cuts to the, oh my gosh, can you not play that again?
And you gotta love it. Like, this is just random based on alphabet, but I love when those nice little coincidences happen. So
yes, it works out well. It makes for good podcasts.
Well, Katherine, thank you so much for joining us. You were a delight to have on. You're welcome back anytime, of course, because it was a really fun conversation.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, and I'll always listen, and I will come back whenever you'll have me.
And for everyone else, thanks. That was fun.
Thanks, that was fun. Don't forget, no regrets, except maybe one.
To celebrate joining Pantheon Podcasts, Rock Camp, the podcast, the official podcast of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, is giving away a guitar signed by Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater, Marty Friedman, formerly of Megadeth, and legendary shredder Zakk Wylde, plus our rockstar counselors like BNABC, Monty Pittman, and more. To enter to win, simply follow, rate, and review our podcast on your preferred platform, and that's all you have to do. For more information, go to rockcamp.com/podcast.